We discussed the NBA players that got their rookie scale extension yesterday, but that leaves a handful of players that did not get their extension. We're going to talk a little bit about those players, plus NBA's initial power rankings before the start of the season going down tonight. All that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything NBA related and basketball related for that matter. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this for today. So we talked about it. We had a panel discussion on the players that got their rookie scale extensions yesterday, a number of 5-year deals at the full max, giving out things like that. But that still leaves some players on this list that did not get their rookie scale extensions. Some of those more notable than others. We're going to focus on a handful of them here. The first one, of course, is Jonathan Kuminga. Now, reportedly, that the Golden State Warriors did offer him a contract in the neighborhood of $30 million per year, whereas his max right now is $43 to $45 million per year. So right now, he's betting on himself. He's betting on himself to secure a huge payday, which, to get another $13 to $15 million annually per year is a huge deal when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga. And the Golden State Warriors also taking a calculated risk when it comes down to it, right? They're looking at, Big Kev pointed out a great point on yesterday's episode, saying that, the Jordan Poole extension ended up biting them in their ass. And, to a lesser degree with Wiggins as well. And so, the Golden State Warriors offering him $30 million rather than the full max, kind of, just to see, like, if they can get a little bit of savings on that. But they put that on the season now where Jonathan Kuminga is going to have to prove it, right? And he had a solid season last year. After, his initial kind of talk and things with Steve Kerr, 16 points per game, 52% shooting from the field, 32% shooting from three, which is his career worst, but we'll see how that comes along for him. 5 rebounds per game, 2.2 assists per game, right under a steal, right under a block per game. And so Jonathan Kuminga is betting on himself to take another step forward to a leap in his 4th year, still being only 22 years old and getting that full scale extension at the end of this season. And so Jonathan Kuminga, one of those players that definitely bet on himself, but I really understand it from both perspectives, the Warriors side and Jonathan Kuminga's side, on why they were not able to work out that contract extension with him. And it really just comes down to he has to go out and prove it. And well, that's something that a lot of these players have to do as well, is they have to go out and prove it. And Kuminga is one of those guys who's in a really good position as well. Also, if the Warriors do look to make a trade or a move, something like that, which involves Kuminga, he has negotiating power with his new team. Of course, having that extension kind of locked in could help that type of thing. But we'll see what the future holds for Jonathan Kuminga. Overall, I do think Kuminga is going to probably end up settling somewhere between the two. I see him staying with the Golden State Warriors. That's just my personal opinion. I know, some people think that the Warriors could make a move for a vet or bringing in somebody to pair with Steph to where they can try to make another go at it. I don't necessarily think they're going to be successful with that. And I think it's ultimately going to come down to them keeping Kuminga, their 22-year-old player, that still has tremendous upside, and having him as one of the building blocks going forward as they try to, forge a new team that can do some solid things and a new foundation, especially when Steph and Dre and those guys ride off into the sunset. So we'll see what the future holds for Jonathan Kuminga. But another player that did not get his extension that's definitely betting on himself, that's Cam Thomas. Now, reportedly as well, like with Jonathan Kuminga, that the Nets were ready to offer him something, but ultimately both sides decided to wait on it, right? The Nets are a team that's going to have $80 million projected in cap space. Now, they're probably not going to be a huge, a draw for a lot of free agents. So, they're looking at that. They're the only team, though, in free agency that has more than $30 million in cap space. And so when it comes down to it, they could make a shot. They could really play spoiler on another team's restricted free agent for a team that may be playing hardball with their team. But Cam Thomas, I think he's going to qualify. He's going to get the max from them eventually if they want him as the only building block they really have on that team going forward. He's 23 years old. He scored 22 points per game last year, and he's coming into a situation where he is going to get all the shots in the world. He increased his output by 12 points per game last year, playing 66 games, starting 51 of those games, 31 minutes. Cam Thomas is going to get every shot possible on this Brooklyn Nets team. And I said it before, for a team that if you want to bet the over-under, I don't even know if they do that. I don't bet. If they allow you to bet the over-under on number of shots taken, there's a high probability Cam Thomas may take the most shots in the NBA next season as long as he can stay healthy. But, it makes sense for the Nets are right now trying to maintain some flexibility to maybe do something, build a young core there by chance. They got some contracts coming off the books, things like that. So Cam Thomas does not get his deal. But again, the Nets, it's a calculated risk. He's going to be a restricted free agent. The Nets can match any offer. They have more money than anybody in free agency. So they can, if they want to keep him, they can offer him. And there's really no questions about that. The next player up, Quentin Grimes. This is another player that, there are some 3-year proposals reportedly on the table from Dallas that they couldn't get it done. They couldn't end up getting the deal done. So Quentin Grimes is now going into restricted free agency at the end of the season. He's a player that the Mavs just acquired, right? And it's usually difficult when you are acquired by a new team leading into restricted free agency. There's not a lot of players that get those deals. He's also on the 3rd team in just the last calendar year. He started off 2023-24 on the Knicks. He then went to Detroit. Now he's on the Dallas Mavericks. He didn't get a contract extension, but we'll see what Quentin Grimes brings, right? He's 6'4", 210 pounds. They gave a contract extension to Jaden Ivey. I don't know if I really see Quentin Grimes getting a new deal with the Dallas Mavericks unless he really shows out, but we could see what happens there. Again, another kind of interesting player and a piece to go into the offseason. Next one is Santi Aldama with the Memphis Grizzlies. This is 7'2", 215-pound power forward / center. And considering the way that the Memphis Grizzlies need bigs and some depth there, we'll see how he plays. He's coming off a really good year, career year for him, averaging over 10 points per game for the first time, over 26 minutes. He started 61 games. Now he started 35 out of playing 61 games. But we know that Memphis Grizzlies team was ravaged with injuries last year. And so I'm not too surprised he didn't get a deal. We'll see what ends up working out with that. But I do think Santi is probably going to end up one of those players that the Memphis Grizzlies may match on. We'll see what kind of offers are out there for him. But that's another one. Another deal that was rumored is Bones Highland. Now, Bones Highland is an interesting case because we heard that the Clippers could have been interested, but we heard very early on that he wasn't going to get a contract extension. And it recently has come out that the Spurs are actually a team that would be very interested in Bones Highland in restricted free agency as they look to add some young guards to that team to add to Stephen Castle, Trey Jones, Blake Wesley, Malik Banham. So, it'd be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I think Bones Highland's probably a player that, unless he has a breakout year, may not be long for the Clippers. I don't know what the fuck the Clippers are doing, if I'm being 100% honest with y'all. I have no idea what the Clippers are going to do with their future, but that's another one to look out for. And then the last one that I want to talk about that's a bit surprising, but not so much. Many know I'm a Bulls fan. I cover the Bulls. I have a whole channel for the Bulls. But that's Josh Giddey, who was reportedly seeking a $30 million contract extension. And I'm sure him and his agency have watched players like Suggs get the $30 million, Jalen Johnson getting $30 million, those type of things. But ultimately, it comes down to, much like I said with Jesus Christ, why am I losing my train of thought? Much like with Quentin Grimes, but to a lesser extent, is that Josh Giddey's on a new team, and the season ended terribly. And then he also had an ankle injury over the summer that kept him out from even practicing or anything for 2 months over the summer after the Olympics. So Josh Giddey is in an interesting situation with the Bulls, where he's on a new team that needs exactly what his skill set brings. And I think ultimately we're going to see what he has there, and he's going to have a chance to earn that contract. He's a restricted free agent, so the Bulls are going to maintain the ability to match any deal that he does get. And I think long-term, he's probably going to end up staying on Chicago. I feel pretty safe in that. But, ultimately it just comes down to, listen, he got to prove it on his new team. And there are already some concerns with, how does him and Kobe White going to fit in the backcourt together? They got Lonzo Ball back healthy, who apparently the Bulls plan on staggering their minutes. So all those things play into the part that we're just waiting and seeing what's going down with Josh Giddey and the Chicago Bulls. But I think it's a pretty safe bet. He's probably going to end up staying in Chicago for the long term, as they traded their best trade asset to get him in the building, and or maybe a sign and trade, which the Bulls have done before. But the Bulls played this like they played every restricted free agency. Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu. They negotiate, they sit down with them, but then they end up not coming up to a deal, but they end up signing them before they hit the open market. So we'll see what happens there. Probably sign them during that moratorium period. But other kind of restricted free agents that did not get their pending restricted free agents that did not get their deal. Chris Duarte had a really big rookie year. He was on that all-rookie second team, I think, after his rookie year, but has since kept dropping since then. Not surprised he didn't get his deal either. Isaiah Jackson with the Indiana Pacers did not get his deal. Again, another player that I'm not really too surprised didn't get his deal. At the end of the day, I think this Pacers team is a team that's trying to compete. They're trying to be much better than what they were last year. And Isaiah Jackson's a player that just hasn't really shown a whole lot, right? He hasn't been given a whole lot of opportunity either. He's 22 years old, some solid size there. His rookie year, he averaged 8 points per game, but it's been down every year since then. So it really makes sense that he didn't get his money. Trey Mann with the Hornets, he has an opportunity there to really kind of show some things. I like Trey Mann actually a lot, probably more than I should, considering what he's shown in the NBA and being another kind of, a playmaker for them off the bench for that Hornets team. He's going to have a chance to show some things to some teams, maybe audition. Maybe some teams can make it interesting in restricted free agency for him. Or maybe the Hornets end up looking and say they got to keep him. This is a guy that averaged 12 points per game last season for that Hornets team. So, we'll see what comes about for that. But overall, he's been on 2 teams in this NBA. He started off with the OKC Thunder. Not too surprised he didn't get his deal either. Jaden Springer, Day'Ron Sharpe, these are all Davion Mitchell. These are all guys that have shown some things over their NBA career, but really not too much there. So not really shocked they didn't get their deals. But let me know what you guys think down below. Out of any of the players that are now pending restricted free agent at the end of this season who did not get their deal, who surprised you the most? Who surprised you the less? Who do you think is going to be on another team this time next year on a new deal? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, the NBA officially released its power rankings before the start of the season, which is going down tonight. Kind of want to talk a little bit about that. There's tiers to it, right? I think you have your contending tier, right? Then you have your could-be contending tier. Then you kind of have your middle-of-the-pack teams that nobody knows. Then you have your tanking team. So when you look at it, the top 10 in that in the power rankings, Boston Celtics at number 1. No surprise there. You look at their point differential last year, the defense that they have, all those type of things. They're the defending champions. It makes sense that they're coming in. They lost nothing, right? So it makes sense they're coming into the season as the number 1 in that power rankings. The Oklahoma City Thunder at number 2. This is, you guys know, I've had videos on it before. This is I love the OKC Thunder team. Now, they got a ding with Isaiah Hartenstein starting off injured for them, but I still think the youth of this team, how many players on this team aren't done developing yet? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not done developing. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. These are all players that still very well could develop for them. They added Alex Caruso, who helps maximize everything they did well defensively, on top of Isaiah Hartenstein as well, who is a really good rebounder, versatile player as well, who's starting off a little bit injured. But I do think that this OKC Thunder team is a team that's competing for a title this season. Third, the Denver Nuggets. A little bit surprising there with the Denver Nuggets and how much they've lost as well. But again, we'll see how that develops for them. I think it's solid overall. We'll see what comes down with that one. But the Denver Nuggets, it's going to be an interesting team to watch with the Denver Nuggets, man, to see how they shake out there, because this is a team that, can definitely do some things, right? And so that's Bleacher Reports power rankings. If you look at that combined to the NBA's power rankings, the first 2 teams were the same. The NBA power rankings were the New York Knicks at number 3, surprisingly. So look out for that. I think that's an interesting one to watch out for as well, with them being number 3. The Knicks are a team that I definitely think with Jalen Brunson there could be extremely well, right? Then you have at number 4 the Minnesota Timberwolves. Surprised that they still have them ranked this high, right? They were ranked number 5 last week. A lot of people kind of view the Minnesota Timberwolves as a team that's worse off after the Karl Anthony Towns trade rather than better off. It is what it is. But I think seeing what Julius Randle looks like for this team, he only played 1 game in the preseason. And that was a game that Naz Reid also missed, so we haven't gotten to see a lot of that. We'll see what that brings. The NBA has Denver Nuggets at number 5. I kind of more so agree with this than Bleacher Reports rankings for sure. They got the Phoenix Suns at number 6. I don't know about y'all, but the Phoenix Suns being ranked above the Dallas Mavericks that are at number 7 is a little odd to me, because I just don't believe in that Phoenix Suns team. I know that they have an actual point guard now there in Tyus Jones, who I do think can help a lot of what they were missing at that actual point guard spot. But having them above the Dallas Mavericks is just a little strange to me. Then you have the Philadelphia 76ers at number 8. I think this is fair. The injury concerns that they have with Paul George, Joel Embiid. But if this team can be healthy at the right time, I definitely think this is a team that can make some noise, and they're going to win a lot of regular season games. Then you have the Cleveland Cavaliers there at number 9. I agree with that. I may even have the Cleveland Cavaliers maybe even above the Phoenix Suns in my personal power rankings, but that is what it is when it comes down to it. The Milwaukee Bucks at number 11, right outside that top 10. They're there with the New Orleans Pelicans, the Orlando Magic, the Golden State Warriors, and the Sacramento Kings to round out the top 15. I kind of agree with those rankings. I would flip-flop some of those teams per se. I'd have the Kings above the Golden State Warriors personally. But again, solid rankings there. You got the Miami Heat at number 16, the Memphis Grizzlies at number 17, the Rockets at number 18, the Lakers at number 19, and the Clippers at number 20. I can see what you get there with all those. But then you have, I think at number 20, start with the Clippers. You have the teams that are kind of really wait-and-see teams, right? The Clippers, the Atlanta Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, the San Antonio Spurs, the Detroit Pistons at number 24, and the Chicago Bulls at number 25. These are all teams that you kind of wait and see. Now, the Clippers are head and shoulders above the rest of these teams, but the Toronto Raptors, I think this team could very well struggle this year. They're trying now to use Scotty Barnes as their player they're building around. I think he's a player that you build with, not necessarily a player that you build around, but we'll see. The Hawks are a team with now Trae Young going back to that, Jalen Johnson, hopefully taking a big step for that team. You'll see what brings there. The Detroit Pistons at number 24, above the Chicago Bulls at number 25 is interesting because I think the Bulls are a team that's really deep. I know that's my team. I know the Detroit Pistons have some really good young talent there. This was the worst team in basketball last year in a lot of ways. Then you got the Utah Jazz at number 26, the Charlotte Hornets at number 27, which is interesting because I think that if this team could stay healthy, the Charlotte Hornets, who won 43 games the last time LaMelo Ball was healthy, I think that team can shock. You got the Portland Trail Blazers at number 28, the Brooklyn Nets at number 29, and the Washington Wizards at number 30. Overall, I agree with most of these power rankings, and I think that you clearly see tiers, right? And the teams that are clearly tanking and they're in that Cooper Flag sweepstakes outright are the Portland Trail Blazers, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Washington Wizards. You can flip-flop the order of any three of those teams. I think that they're going to be the bottom three teams in the league this season. I just think it makes sense when it comes down to it. The Utah Jazz are an interesting one because you never know what the Jazz are going to do. Reportedly, they were looking to shop Laurie. They end up keeping him, so they can't move him until next year. Walker Kessler's on the trade block reportedly as well, that there's a player that they could be looking to move. The Jazz are a team that could double down on their young core, or they could trade 2/3 of their young players, and they still got some veterans on that team as well that they can, go out and try to get some picks back for as well. So all those things it's interesting. This season is going to be a really interesting season to watch because with the Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey sweepstakes, whatever that is, there's going to be a lot of teams that at probably about 25 games into the season are probably going to say, hey, we're not doing shit this season. And some of those teams could tank. We could see some teams sell off a lot of the Portland Trail Blazers are another team that have a lot of pieces there that they could sell off, right? It's going to be really interesting to watch, man. And I'll see how those things all develop for those teams. But let me know what you guys think of those power rankings. Who would you have ranked higher, lower when it comes down to it? But then I want to get into a Bleacher Report article, right? And this was an article that said predicting the biggest X factors in the NBA next season. And this was a really interesting list. Number one X factor, Kristaps Porzingis. And I think by the definition of X factor, Kristaps Porzingis and his health could really determine how easy things are for the Boston Celtics this year. I still think they're the deepest team in the league. They're still they're a very top-heavy team, but their defense, everything is extremely solid. But when you look at Kristaps Porzingis and his health, already starting off the season not healthy for the Boston Celtics, but if Kristaps is healthy at the right time and in the playoffs for this team, listen, he's expected to return around New Year's, right? So that's going to be a 6-month rehab process for him. But if KP, when he gets back on the court, if Boston Celtics are 100% other places, I think, he is one of the biggest X factors that could determine the outlook of the league this upcoming year. Then Klay Thompson at number 2 with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, a lot's been made over Klay Thompson and the struggles in the preseason. But I think of Klay Thompson playing with Kyrie, playing with Luka, which he didn't get to do a lot in the preseason, even doing what he did last year at a 38% three-point shooter. Klay Thompson could really be a huge X factor for this Dallas Mavericks team. This is a Mavericks team that has the favorite via odds to win MVP in Luka Doncic. You have Kyrie Irving. You got the depth there. And you lost a little bit with losing DJJ as far as defensive versatility. But Klay Thompson's coming in. He's going to be in that Tim Hardaway Jr. role. He's way better suited to do that. And if he can be anything solid defensively, it makes a huge role for them, a huge thing for them. Next up, Miles Bridges with the New York Knicks. Miles Bridges is always an X factor. Him switching from Brooklyn to New York to play for that Knicks team is huge. You look at him now being back to being able to be a 3-and-D player for this team because he can focus. The offense isn't built around him. So for him now to be able to focus and what he can bring defensively on the wings with what they're able to switch with him and OG and those guys, like this could be a really fun team to watch. And defensively, I could see very well why Miles Bridges could be a big X factor for this team. 28 years old. He can do some playmaking as well. Miles Bridges has the chance to be a really important cog for this New York Knicks team. And I could see him definitely being at his career high right now in assists is 3.6. That's last season. I think he can do better than that because they're going to need some creation, even though Tyler Kolek has looked really good for that New York Knicks team as well in the preseason. Evan Mobley coming in here at number 4. I mean, Evan Mobley and him finishing 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year, him having the ability at 23 years old to hit a major leap as well. Listen, Evan Mobley, if he can score better, if the Cleveland Cavaliers run more things through Evan Mobley, he can absolutely be a huge X factor. I just think he's maybe too big of a cog to be called an X factor per se, because I still think he's a hugely important piece of what that Cleveland Cavaliers team is trying to do this year. But let me know if you agree with him being labeled an X factor. And then lastly, Chet Holmgren at number 5. And I agree with this. Now, I would have Isaiah Hartenstein here, especially if he was healthy. But I think Chet Holmgren now, moving to the 4, when Hartenstein does play, what Holmgren can do defensively as well. Listen, Chet is a monster, and that OKC Thunder team, I already said it earlier, that's a team that I would love to see win the title, and I think they have everything that they need to win an NBA title this year. But let me know what you guys think. Anybody left off the list that you think could still be X factors coming into the season? Let me know all that down below. Otherwise, make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything basketball related, but that's thanks to you guys. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.